This is a walkthrough of the Doggie Daycare case from the Road to Las Vegas 2024, also used for the Microsoft Excel Collegiate Challenge, and the case was authored by the MECC founder, Dr. David Brown. Okay, so starting off, if you start in and you need to split out to get the number part of this, so that would be left of, take your data, there we go, one character, and then you want to sum that up. And the first thing you realize is that it won't sum up because that's a text function and it brought it back as text characters. So you either need to wrap it in a value function, or if you put those characters into a calculation, then it will convert it into numbers. Okay, so now I've got that. It's working. I could copy all this down. And then my answers are over here, so then I have to copy those again. So it would have been a little bit more efficient to put a formula right in here that would add up the sum. Okay, now I've got 20, and I can split off and start over here again. It starts to get kind of wide, so at this point I think I'm going to bring in a new sheet and do some data tables. Okay, so look up my cell in. Now in my case, I've already got example 1 done, so I'm just going to start with example 2 and go all the way to the end. And notice I'm starting on row 72, going out to row 312. And then if I go over here, I want to go to row 72. There we go. G72 to DC312. Okay. Then I didn't find example 1. There we go. Example 2. So I've got this starting character, which is the arrow, and I want to count how many of them are in this. So once I've started this, realizing I need more helper cells, I'm going to have to come up here and do a left function again. So I'm going to have to redo something that I already did because I didn't think far enough ahead. So take left one character, but now I know to times it by 1. Now I've got the number part split off, and now I can do the arrows, which would be the right, this one character. And then for level 2, I just want to count if this arrow is in here. So let me start a level 2. And a sequence of each level had 20 games in it, and this one starts at 21. And it will be count if this range has that arrow. Got an answer of 4, which was the answer from level 2, and put in a data table based off of cell A1. There we go. Okay, so now I go on to level 3, and when a dog moves, it moves one cell horizontally, one cell vertically, for a total of 2 cell lengths. What's the sum of the distance traveled? Now when I move to example 3 in this, see now that value didn't get picked up because my first row of how the dog, my first cell where the dog moves, on level 2, my first cell was in this spot, and level 3 it's in this spot. So now I'm going to have to move things over But then on level 4, we're going to have to move them back again. So it would have been easier to kind of look ahead at all of the levels and see if I can adjust the data to realize that I'm going to have to pull in that cell G, and so my dog movements are going to start I'm going to have to use column G for my starting address. The dog movements will start in column H. So anywhere where that's not the case, like on this level, I'm just going to insert some cells. So that now the dog movements all start in column H, and the same thing here. So if I would have looked ahead a little bit, it would have been good. And, oh, let me get this one. So those are fine because the data start in H, and that was level 2. Okay, so now coming back, for example 3, I have an empty cell that comes in, but then my splitting all this part happens in the right place. Let me center up everything here. So Alt Home and Align Center. Okay. I need to know how far the dog moves, so I need to get a list of all of the arrows. And to do that, I will use the unique function, come back to my case, and hope that that level contained all 8 arrows, which it did. Then for the row and the column of each, the rows stayed, I've got one bigger, lose one row, stay the same row, -1, -1, same row, up a row, and then for columns, same column, back one, up one, same column, back, and up. Okay, make this a lookup table. So create named ranges using the top row for your names. So there they are. So now I can do the row change and the column change will be equal to look up the arrow in my arrows and return the row, and then I can look up the arrow in my named range and bring back the column. Okay, then for level 3, which is going to start at that plus 20. The total of all the movements, I want to do the absolute value of the row change. So let's just watch this as it goes along. Absolute value of, add up all the row, and let's shorten this so we can see it a little bit better. Okay. There we go. So when I do the absolute value of, I took the wrong thing. Oh, because I need to take my row, when I do my lookup, times it by the distance. There we go. Distance and direction. And the same thing here. After I look up my column, times it by what my distance was. Okay. So then the absolute value of my row change makes all the negatives turn into a positive, but then I want to add up the total distance traveled, which would be the sum of all of that. And this will give me how many rows I moved. And then I need to add the same logic for the columns. So the sum of the absolute value of, go get the column. Right there. 68, and that was the correct answer for example 3. Those numbers don't look right. What in the world is going on wrong with that? Oh, it would be that right there. Okay. Looking good. We're back on track. Example 3. Yes. Okay. Control. Match up and paste those in. Got it. Wow. Level 4. I want to know how far a dog traveled over 5 turns, but just from its starting position. So now the net, and this is for example 4. I've only got 5 positions that it's going to travel now. So let's do level 4. It's going to equal, get my previous numbers at 20. Okay. Now, this time I want to sum up the row first so that the -2 and the +3, I'll get a net of 1. But then I need to do my column sum separately. And if my column, just to demonstrate, when I sum up my column change, the net is a -3. So I need to absolute value each one of them separately and then add them together. So that would be take the sum of my x numbers, but then absolute value it. And then do the same, absolute value of the sum of your column numbers. And data table. Okay, level 5, where am I? So now I want to have the ending address for the dog. And example 5 should end in AL8. Move to example 5. And get my numbers. So since I'm doing this over and over again, it would be easier to just copy what I just did and prepare for level 6 and level 7 and level 8 right now. Okay, now for each column change, this is my starting cell. I need to have a start row and a start column. It starts in, get the row of, and then I want for A07, but if I just click on that cell, it's going to bring back row 1 because that selected cell, it happens to be in row 1. And what I want instead is the row for the reference there. And then similarly, I'll do a column for indirect and use the reference. So I've got my starting cell, and I'm going to put that right here. Highlight it so I don't forget what I'm doing, and then the row is going to change down 2. So I want to take my previous row location and add the change in the row, carry that across, and then take my previous column location and add the change in the column. And then as I carry that across, I'll always take the previous location and add to get the next location. Okay, then I want an ending address. To get the address for row 5 and column 43 and bring it back in relative mode, so no dollar signs. Copy that across. and I end in AL8, and I'm feeling pretty good about that. So level 5 should be that ending cell, and do a data table for that. Okay, now level 6, I have to keep track of where the food is. And so on the Doggie Daycare, the food is all these brown cells. So if I highlight all of them and then holding down the control key so I can select all of this group at once. And then I'm going to take out that pattern just so we can see better what's going on. That's where my cursor is. That's my active cell right now. And I want to fill all of these brown areas that are still selected with the address. I need the row number. The row number is directly across from here. And I want to always use this column value. So I want to lock the column on that reference, and then go up directly above it is the reference for the column number. This time I want to lock just the row and bring it back in relative form. So finish the formula, and then instead of hitting enter, hit control enter, and it will copy that into all the cells that are highlighted. So now I've got all of the addresses where the food happens. So I'm going to come over and create a list with toCol and highlight everything. Now notice that my bath area is being highlighted too. And on the toCol array, ignore all the blanks so I don't pick up all of these extra cells that I don't need. Okay, now, if anything were to change in these blue cells, because I'm going to need to put the addresses in here for where the bath cells are. But when I do that, I don't want those cells to get picked up by this toCol command that I just did. So I'm going to take what I just found, and I'm going to copy it and then paste the values over the top of it so that now that's static. And then I want to make a column of that has just ones in it. So do a control enter so that when I do an X lookup, I want to bring back a 1. It's like making a flag for a column. And create from selection using just the top row, so that now I've got those named ranges. And I want to do the same for the bath area. And this time I won't bother to take out the fill. Go for and press this control enter. Okay, then this is my bath. Do a toCol and select just those. I didn't have any extras, and I'm not going to mess with that area anymore. So this would be my bath ones. Come down and fill in ones on all of that, and then select and create named range again. Okay, while we're here in this Doggie Daycare area, here it is. Now that I have something in there, if I highlight all of it over to the edge, right there on the status bar, I can see that there are counted 142 cells. That's one of the bonus answers for how many cells are in the feeding and bathing areas combined. So we can do that one. Okay, then for my next level, sum the turn numbers that each dog eats food. Okay, so when I get to this end address, I want to know, is that a food address? So I'm going to look up that address in my food array, and then what do I want it to return? Well, I really want a 1. I want a 1 if the address is food, and I want a 0 otherwise. So my return array can just be my food ones, and then if you don't find it, bring back a 0. And I am now on, this is level 6, example 6. I need to copy my formulas over to the end. And now I need to know, so here's where the food happens. Just to make this clearer, I'm going to take the time, put in some conditional formatting. So food happens on those two cells, and I want to know what turn that was. So I'm going to go back and put in a turn sequence of, the most I will need is 100, and let me highlight those so that I can remember what's what. Okay, so this is turn 13 and turn 14. Level 6. I want to multiply this array times my turn array, and any place where there wasn't food, it'll 0 out, and any place there was food, it'll multiply by a 1. So the sum product function will take that array times this array, multiply them together, and then add it all up, and I get 27. Level 4, level 5, level 6. Okay, bath time. The dogs are now going to take a bath, so I need to know, was it a bath or not? But they only take baths the first time they finish in the bath zone. And they won't move for the next 2 turns after that. So coming into example 7, honestly, I'm going to move to example 8 because it illustrates better what I'm going to be up against here. I've got a couple of things. One is that the data is going to go out further, and I'm going to start going off the grid. And that's why I'm getting these errors, because I'm trying to find the address for row -3, and that's not going to work. So I've got to clean up how my row and column are happening, and I want to figure out where the bath is happening. So let me put bath right here. I can find it if I look up the address in my named range bath, and then I can return from my bath ones, and if I don't find it, return a 0. So no bath, and then here's where my first bath is. But I need to know that that was on turn number 9, so I need to 0 out turn 10 and 11, but then I don't want to 0 out over here where the bath happened again. So I want to know the first place where I get a 1. So I could do a lookup, look for a 1 in this array. Here we go. Let's go to 20 for now, and if you find it, return what turn that was on. And the XLOOKUP only brings back the first one that it encounters. So I bring back a 9, which says my first one happened, my first bath happened on turn 9, and that's true. Oh, I didn't lock my reference. Let me lock that. And lock this. Okay, let's try that again. So the first bath always happened in cell 9. So then I would want to zero out the movement for turn 10 and turn 11. Okay, so that would be if this, if the turn that I'm on is this plus 1, or, so now I'm going to need an or, the turn that I'm on is the first bath number plus 2, then I want to have a 0. Otherwise, bring a 1. So let's fix this. If I need an or and an or right there. I lost my reference. If my turn is equal to, there we go. Okay, so now this is no, don't move. But don't move on those 2 turns. So then I could go back to my row. And so my row would be do previous position plus change times, and then should I move? Should I move with because of the bath or not? And now I end up with a mess of a modeling situation because I've got circular references. The 9 is being created from an XLOOKUP based on these, but those 1s and 0s were being created from an end address here. The end address was being created from these rows and columns, and those rows and columns are trying to be created from this, should I move or not? So I could fix this and get through level 7, but to get through level 8, I'd have to stop and fix it again. So I'm just going to start over and create my model the way that it should have been created, which is I have my starting row and column. I make my first move. At the end of the move, I have to make decisions. So my first decision would be right after the food. For your next move, it's either going to be a 1 or a 2, depending on if you found food in that cell or not. And then for my bath, I need to figure out where the first bath happened and then plan my next move based on the bath. And it would either be yes, move, or don't move. Okay. Well, starting from here. Look up the address in food and return from the food ones. Otherwise, bring in a 0. And then for your next move would be if you landed on food, it's going to be an or. If your current move landed on food, so if that was a 1, or your previous move landed on food, or the move previous to that landed on food, then double your move, otherwise just do a multiple of 1. Was it a bath? So look up your cell in bath and return from your bath ones, otherwise bring back a 0. And now for this lookup, I can't have my lookup get ahead of where I'm at. So it can't look all the way down the row, but I still want it to bring back the first one that it finds. So I'm going to be looking for a 1. My lookup array is going to be this to itself. And then I want to return the turn number and again have it start and end there. If it's not found, I want to bring back, so I want to bring back the turn. But if I don't find the bath, I want to bring back a nonsense turn. So I'm just going to call it -5. Okay, then in your reference, lock your first cell and let your second, so starting in the H12, ending in, make this relative. So that will start to expand out as I copy my column across. And the same thing with my return row. Make the first reference absolute, let the second one be relative so that this will expand down. And then, should I move on my next turn? If the number that I got, this can be an or, if the turn that I'm on is equal to where my first bath happens, then my next move should be a 0. Or the turn that I'm on is equal to where my first bath happens +1. My next move should be 0, otherwise move. Okay, then I got to my first, I did my first series of movements, I make my decisions. Now from here on out, my next move has to be take your previous row plus however much your row changed times by the decisions I made on the previous step. How much should I move for the food? How much should I move for the bath? Similarly for the column, it should start in my previous column plus my column change times the result of my decisions from the previous move about food and about the bath. Now if I take these and start to copy them over, they should all stay the same because I'm referencing things down here, but this is where we'll find out if we did it right. So my first bath returns nonsense turn until it finds a bath, and it finds that on turn 9, and it will return turn 9 forever after. So if you watch this, see the X lookup expands out to there. It's anchored at the first spot, and then it expands out to my current spot. So here, anchored at the first spot, expanding out to my current formula spot. The bath was zeroed out on 9 and 10, so I entered the bath on turn 9. I stayed in the bath for the next 2 turns. And then let's move this out and these. And then my last problem is that I start to have negative rows. So right here, that's my row number. I'm going to copy that. If that value is bigger than 51, then stay on 51. But if, paste that value, is less than 2, stay on row 2. Otherwise, just keep that. And for my column, copy and put in if that is bigger than 51, then stay on 51. If, paste it in again, if it's less than 2, stay on row 2. Otherwise, keep the value, double parentheses to end. Okay. Copy this over. It should fix those references. And everything should be working out. I only stopped in the bath once, even though I have other baths later on. I believe that's working. We can now copy that to the end. And for the food, I want to highlight cells where food happened. On turn 38. And in my case, on example 8, that was the answer. So let's try our data table for example 8, for level 8. That will be a sum product of did the food happen times what turn did it happen on? Sum product. So level 8 is working. We've got all the movement happening correctly. Okay, let's go do we've got example 8 working. Let's go do this last bonus question. So in level 8, how often do the dogs end up in the same cell together? All the movements in games 141 to 160. So for, this will be bonus 5. I want to do all of these games again, but this time I want to know, I put example 8 back. This time I want to know all these cells that the dog ends up in. So I'm going to equal all of that. And then I'm going to do a data table and for each game it will tell me on each turn where the dog was at. So let's see, data table A1. And then to find out if the same cell happened twice on the same turn, down here I want to count the unique values on those. And they're not numbers, so let's count all. So 20, that means there were never had the same cell twice. If I copy that down, so 19, there must be duplicates in here. So my answer should be that I want to do 20 times 100 cases, subtract off the sum of this. There must have been 16 times that there were dogs in the same cell on the same turn. Correct. Okay. Got level 8 done and the bonus. So let me go back to and finish level 7. So on level 7, we're only concerned about the bath, so we don't have the double movements if there were food. So I just want to take this and make it ones all the way across. And that should be the only difference between level 7 and level 8. So now level 7 should be on what turns did the dog have food. So I'll do a sum product of when they found food. And this only goes out to 20. And level 7 times what turn was I on? See how we did. Okay, so all of those are done. Finish up the bonus questions. One direction appears more often than any other. How many times does that direction appear in all the movements? So let me open up a new page and we're going to take all of the movements. First 20 games. starting there. Next 20 games. Nope, one more. Okay, that's all of my data. What do I want again? What direction appears most often? So I want to take, let me get some space here. And do a 2-column on this entire sheet. Select everything, ignore the blanks. Okay, there they all are. And then split out the right one character. And now do count if my range, lock it, equals that arrow. Copy it down. Maximum is right there, so 559. Across levels 5 through 8, what's the sum of the row numbers and the column numbers for all of the starting cells? Okay. So on my sheet with all the work on it, I bring it in and I have the starting row and the starting column. So let me just do a bonus right here again, and I want a sequence. Levels 5. So level 5 would start, levels 5 through 8, so 5, 6, 7, 8, that should be 80 rows, and starting at 81. Is that right? Levels 5 through 8. Yeah, starting at 81, ending at 160K. Then what I want to bring back is start row here equals start column, and make a data table. Oh, but my reference is now in D1 because I moved stuff over. Let's try that again. Okay, and if I sum all of that, $41.70. Last, a dog starts in cell AAA 1000, follows all of the movement directions in games 121 through 160. What cell does it finish in? So I need all of the movement directions from those cells. Okay, so I'm going to go to my, I'm going to copy this. I need to be able to get those addresses. Let me copy that and paste it into a new sheet. And this is where my starting cell will be, which was AAA 1000. So I've got my row and my column coming in. I don't really need the turns. I'm just going to get rid of that while I'm thinking about it. Okay. And then for my data, let's do a 2-row. I've got all of my games in this tab and by row. So starting row 121 down to 160 and all the way across. Ignore the blanks. Okay, got all the distance traveled. That's looking good. Let me just make sure that my references, nope, see, they don't go as far as they ought. Okay. So I1 to DD1. Okay, we'll do I1, and now I can do it with a hashtag, get all of that data. Same thing here. And the row change should be good. And the column change, hashtags both, yes. And then here, oh, that's right, because I put in all my fancy thing here. So all we need here now, don't need the if statement, I just need to take the equals previous column plus previous row plus the change in the row, and have this equal to the previous row plus the change, previous column plus the change in the column. Copy that, paste it in. That should be my final cell. There we go. Thank you for watching.